Welcome to another episode of Gospel Entrepreneurs, and I'm so excited that we've got Dan Northover, and he heads up a charity called Handcrafted. Dan's passion comes through so strong because he recognises that every individual is created in God's image. And that's what causes him to bring about the transformation. Nobody is beyond God's love. Dan, is it Durham, or are you below Durham, or Newcastle, or Sunderland? Whereabouts are you?
So I'm based in Durham. I'm the CEO of a charity called Handcrafted, which works with people like on the margins of society, people who've been written off by society across the Northeast. There's loads of different things that we're doing that I'm excited to talk about. And also part of a big, busy family.
Let's start there with the big, busy family. I know you've got some interesting people in your family, and you discovered some things about your son, but give us the family that you work with, because that impacts also on what you then do as the charity as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good place to start because they're absolutely my biggest inspiration. My wife and 5 kids. We've got a mixture of birth children, fostered, adopted children. They're my inspiration for everything else that I do, definitely.
So I know when we were talking or sharing, you gave me a story of you discovering that one of your children couldn't see, and you weren't aware of it until you were driving a car, I think.
We knew one of our children, Jacob, he was 12 at the time. We knew that he was having to have more tests on his eyes, and we knew there was a condition that he had, but we didn't really know the full scale of it. There was one time we were driving back from a football match late one evening, and he was sat up the front with me, which he didn't normally do. And he asked me, "How do you know where to steer?" And I said, "What? Well, I can see the road. I can see where to steer." And I thought, "Can you not see?" And I said, "What, Jacob? What can you see?" He said, "Oh, I can't see anything." I said, "Sure, but the headlights of the car's coming." He said, No, I can't see anything. And so I said, what did you think I've been doing all this time? He said, "I did wonder, because I thought you were just guessing where to go. And I've been sat in the back normally. And it feels like a roller coaster. You never know where we're going next, all of this sort of thing." And I thought, all this time, it hadn't occurred to him that I could see where I was going at night. So I said, Jacob, can you not see anything at night? He said, "No." Then I was racking my brains back, and I was remembering all these times when we'd gone out in the dark, and I thought he'd been following us along, and we'd said it's dark, and obviously to him, he thought that meant we were all stumbling through pitch black, and we were telling him to hurry up and everything, but not realizing that he can see his eyesight. He'd gone night blind, which meant that he couldn't see anything in the dark, but during the day he could see. And then over time, that vision's got worse and worse, so that he's now completely blind. But we realised that for 12 years, he'd been blind from sort of evening through the night, and we'd had no idea. And then I realised that he'd been walking to school in the dark northeast mornings all this time. I said, "Jacob, have you been walking to school?" And he said, "I just remember the route, and I can feel along the walls, and I listen for the cars, and it's fine, apart from on bin day, because then all the bins are in the pavement, and so walk into all of them." And I just felt like the worst parent ever, honestly. But I've spoken to other parents who've had the same thing, and actually sometimes with the way different eye conditions can progress, the thing I realized is actually you've got no idea what the world looks like to anyone else. He thought dark meant pitch black. And so when we said it's a dark evening or it's an overcast day, he thought everyone else couldn't see anything. And we thought he could, and we just had no idea what the world was like for him, what it looked like from his perspective. And it just made me stop and rethink everything. I thought, how many times have I been doing this, not realizing the challenges other people are facing, the obstacles that they're facing, the different perspectives that people had. And I thought he had, like, actually what he's been doing is amazing. I've been fussing at him over all these little things, and actually he's been overcoming this. And I just like, it's made me stop and think a lot about, like, actually, we know what we're going through. We've no idea, like, what other people are facing, what they're dealing with, even within our own family.
Yeah, and for your own son, you must have felt, this is awful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I went from thinking this is awful to actually thinking, like, this is seriously impressive, because he's learned ways of finding things around. Like, he can hear the echoes of things and he uses that to navigate. He's found his own way of doing things. And actually, like, what we've started to get better at doing is just, like, empowering him to be himself and to find his own way of, like, working through things and dealing with things to build him up and celebrate everything he can do. And I'm still learning. I've still got no idea how he does some things, but yeah, he manages.
Is he now totally blind then, Dan? Is he?
Yeah.
Can he?
So he can sit on a sunny day. He can tell where the sun is. So it's that sort of thing, like a very bright light. He could spot that. Or inside, if there's a sort of very bright, one of those strong LED lights, he can tell that is, and maybe a dark shape somewhere. But otherwise, he's just finding his way. But you wouldn't know, because, like, we didn't notice, and people still don't realize, because he's found his own way of, like, getting through and navigating. It's a daily inspiration and learning experience for me, that's for sure.
It must be amazing, because parenting with a child like that, and the rest of the family as well. But he seems to be not a victim in this. He's just got on with it, it sounds like.
Absolutely. He's determined to just get on with it and carry on doing everything. He's determined to keep playing football.
Playing football? How do you play football?
Well, we were taking him along to Saturday football matches. And actually, it got to the point where he couldn't see the ball, but he could make out the shapes of the other players. And he could tell if they were running towards him. And so he'd listen for the sound of the ball. And then he was very good at taking another player out, that's for sure. When he got the ball, he wasn't quite sure where it was going, but he could boot it up the pitch. He became quite a solid defender. But then one day we got to a football match, got out of the car, and he just said, I can't do it. And he couldn't. Yeah, I was waving my hand across the front of his face. He couldn't see his hand in front of his face. And it broke my heart. And I drove him back, like, trying to quietly, sobbing. I just thought, to a 12-year-old boy, football's everything. And I just thought, like, yeah, I thought that's it. But actually, it's not. He's got into blind football now. He's incredibly good at that. And we've met other blind people and realised actually that there are loads of people who can do this. Give them the right opportunity. Like, see things from their perspective. Give them the right chance. And incredible people. And it's been an incredible experience, like, going on this journey with him. It's a very strange experience as a parent, as a dad. Because sometimes you're teaching your children from your experience and you're leading them through things from your experience. But actually, I'm parenting kids who've been through incredibly traumatic backgrounds. I've got no idea. I've just got to like try and see things from their perspective, try and like understand how they're dealing with things. And I learned so much from like their bravery, their inspiration, their way of dealing with things, and actually just trying to support and empower them to be themselves in their own way.
That's a great segue into now what you do to see people from the other perspective, because you felt God's call on your life to what you're now doing, very entrepreneurial. Tell me the charity that you run and how you got into that.
Yeah, so the charity is called Handcrafted, and it started way back when I was a student in Durham. And one of the things about Durham is there's some really striking inequality in your faith. It's one of the most prestigious universities with people from very elite backgrounds in an area of the Northeast, which has seen a lot of marginalization and deprivation. And this was where I first started getting to know people who were on the streets in Durham, and actually seeing that they had so much to offer. They had been written off and they had been pushed to the margins in a particularly sort of unequal area. But actually they had so much to offer. And there was the one thing that I always come back to is that time where I was trying to volunteer as part of a church project, cooking a meal for people who are on the streets, and then served this sort of like dodgy pasta bake to someone who'd been a chef in a like 5-star restaurant before like circumstances had led to him becoming homeless. I just thought it's the wrong way round. And I started thinking like, we need to try and see things differently, like have a different perspective on this. Saw people coming into church, like engaging with the gospel, the message of transformation and that hope for a new life. But actually thought there's a lot of work to do, and day to day facing huge obstacles which like none of the rest of us have had to overcome. And that was where it came from, trying to think, how can we do this better? What can we do? Because there's so much gifting, so much opportunity, so much value here. It's all just been squashed and blocked and crushed. So yeah, the name Handcrafted, it came from when I then found this verse, Ephesians 4:28, which said, "Let those of you who have been stealing steal no longer, but instead make something with your hands so that you might have something to give to the poor." And I thought, I must have read through Ephesians before, and I thought it never jumped out to me before that verse. But I thought that sentence, that's a huge vision of transformation of someone's life. Like they're stopping stealing, they're stopping an old lifestyle. They're not just stopping, but they're starting to work. They're starting to use their time for good. And they're not just doing that, but they're then using that to help other people. And it creates this cycle of they're then helping other people to then help other people. That one sentence has a vision. And also, like, the Bible says what we should be doing. We should go and we should make stuff with our hands. And we should get people to be making stuff with their hands. And Ephesians 2:10 says they are handcrafted. They're God's handiwork. They're God's masterpiece. So I thought, how about instead of writing people off, we believe that God has made them with value, with purpose, and we just try and give them every opportunity. And that's what we decided Handcrafted was. Me and a few other people from church, we decided that's what it was. And yeah, that's the vision that it started with.
How long ago was that, Dan?
So it's 13 years ago now.
And you're now, what size of a charity are you now?
We're now based across a few places across the northeast in Durham, Chesley Street, Gateshead, Sunderland. Each day we're working with 80 people across the different activities that we've got going on. Yeah, we moved into housing, giving people that sort of stable place to live. We've got 109 people in our housing at the moment. Team of 40 staff.
And you produce product, don't you? I know the charity's significant and the finances, but you produce stuff, don't you? You get them to handcraft what's in them.
Yeah, and so day one, that's where it was. We got together in a carpentry workshop and we started making stuff together. And that was the simple idea, taking old bits of wood that have been offcuts from other projects, preparing them, planing them down, gluing them together, making them into something new, something beautiful. That's what we did on the first day, and we loved the metaphor of that, and we still do it. Day one, for a lot of people, they come in and they're making chopping boards or pens or something out of old offcuts of wood. And so it is about that. It's about making stuff, but it's also the metaphor for everything else we do. It's about the lives of people who've, been written off by everyone else, but actually have something really beautiful to offer. It's derelict houses, which can become a really beautiful home for someone. There's an old pub in Gateshead, which so many people told us, like, this is a bad area, this is a violent area, it's a terrible area. But actually it's a cafe, it's a training workshop, it's housing, it's a really beautiful community space now. So it's products and it's making stuff, but it's also all of those things. It's transforming what everyone else has written off into something beautiful.
I know the Gateshead story is an amazing story because everybody said you're crazy to go here, but God obviously spoke to you and you knew you were going to do it because you're into seeing the gospel transform the toughest areas.
Yeah, I'm. People tell me I'm crazy on a daily basis. It's always good to have that positive star feedback, and and often they're right. But sometimes there's a good idea hidden in there. But yeah, it was interesting because we were looking at this idea of transforming this pub, and there was a lot of talk about this being a bad area. But one of the guys we were working with, he'd grown up in this area, so I asked him what he thought. And I asked him, did you ever come to this as a pub? Did you ever drink in this pub? And he said he used to until his best friend was murdered in that pub. That's when he stopped coming to it. But now he wanted us to take it over, and he wanted to be coming along again because he said it's not a bad area. It's become dominated by a very small group of people. But actually, there's so many good people in the area. There's just nothing positive for them to do. If you create the positive stuff for people to do, then they'll come out. And actually, this area doesn't need to be written off as a bad area. It's full of really good people. And if you come along now on a Monday afternoon, you'll see what was all this sort of doom talk of this terrible violent area. And then you see this really incredibly lovely ukulele group playing away the songs they've written, or people doing their first ever getting their first ever job working a work placement in our cafe, cooking a big community meal that's shared together by 40 plus people every day. You see, this isn't a rough area. It's not a violent area. It's a good area. You just needed to give people the right opportunity and the right chance.
And what you've done is amazing. Wasn't you in the church? Wasn't your dad a pastor? Is that right? Have I got that right?
My dad wasn't a pastor. He was a church warden, but he had a lot of different roles. He was always he wasn't the upfront person. He was the person who was always getting stuff done behind the scenes. And I didn't fully realize how much until I was actually stood at the front of church doing the eulogy after he died a couple of years ago. And I looked out and I saw loads of people who knew some of the stuff that he was doing. He was a school governor, that he'd volunteered with this charity, that he'd done this, that he used to race classic sports cars, that he'd made boats, all of these sort of things. He had all of these fascinating things that he'd done. And I thought there's no one else in the room who knows all of this, because actually he had this amazing way of just getting on with whatever he was doing. He never worried about it because he just trusted that into God's hands. What comes of this is in God's hands. He never took any credit for it because it's not his place to take credit for it. And he achieved so much throughout his whole life, and no one had any idea. It was as I was standing up the front talking about him, I thought, that's it. Actually, if it's, you can save yourself so much stress if you let God do the worrying, and if you let God take all the credit for it, then it just saves so much energy from worrying and attention seeking and all of that sort of thing.
And I remember you telling the story, and my thought immediately went to, what a legacy, that no one knew all of that, but all of it together was the legacy of your father. One life that actually had a massive impact. And now that continues through you. You've had some amazing successes. Give us one thing that was a real disaster that just, oh dear, we got that totally wrong, or it didn't work, or whatever.
Certainly in the early days, it was very much a trial and error approach. But actually, we wanted to stand up for people and say, no, everyone else has written them off, but we're gonna believe in them. We're gonna believe that they can turn things around, that they can make this work. Sometimes we've then had houses completely trashed, some really complex difficulties that we've had to deal with. But actually, it's that thing of what we're doing is we're believing in people. We're doing what we know we can do to the best we can, and just trusting the rest into God's hands. And we'll trust in him to deal with that
Which is amazing, which is what you do. Where did you get the money to do that? Because obviously some people see a pub and they're like, well, we'd never afford it. We'd never be able to do it. Because you grew this from nothing to where you are now. Did you say 40 staff?
Yeah.
How have you done that?
This has been what we've spent the last 13 years trying to work out. One of the things that I did before starting a charity is I trained as an accountant. My wife had to put up with me being quite grumpy about this for 3 years. I didn't enjoy training as an accountant particularly. So many wonderful ideas get stopped by finance. So I thought if I work out, if I can understand finance better, then hopefully we can release so much more opportunity. And so over time, we've been getting grant funding, we've been making things, we've been selling things, we've been doing the housing, we've been bringing rent for the housing. And it's trying to pull together all these different sources of funding. But what we've seen is actually making the case that if we treat people really well, if we give them the best opportunity, it's not just good for them, it's good for all of us. That vision is people turning their lives around and then having something good to offer to everyone. The whole of society benefits. And so actually what we've seen is we have been able to raise funding by doing things really well. Quite often, like with this pub or different things, like the money's not there when we start and we do it because we believe in it. And actually it does come because it works and it proves itself. And I think this is the thing that's really striking me at the moment is that actually we're trying to work with some of the most vulnerable people in society, and at the same time we see well-publicized stories of people actually doing quite a lot of profit extraction, like making a lot of profit out of things like running children's homes or housing asylum seekers or these sort of things. Actually there's money out there, but so often projects are short-term projects which don't benefit the individual, don't benefit society, and actually a lot of profit's being made out of it. I think actually if we can rethink those finance models and really push for the best for people, we can make it work. Surely we can make it work, and it's better for everyone.
You're the most visionary accountant I think I've ever come in touch with. Most accountants are cautious. They're certainly not the person you are, but you've got a vision that is really rolling out in transformation. People come to faith, they turn their lives around, they turn their families around. People listening to this, you're just a regular guy, Dan, that is seeking to live out the Jesus lifestyle in your family, seeking to live it out in the community. As we come into land, people listening, what is the secret sauce, Dan, that has made you do what you've done?
Oh, yeah, good question. The thing we keep coming back to is just the simplicity of, like, what do you believe? And actually, what we're trying to do is we're trying to step out in really difficult areas, and we're trying to do something different. And that is really hard sometimes. One of my trustees who helped found the charity with me asked me at the beginning, like, when this gets hard, what are you going to come back to? What's the calling? And it's those verses that I keep coming back to. And it's those simple truths about believing everyone is made by God with value and purpose. Whatever we can struggle with, whatever it looks like for us day to day, and we've talked about having our own perspective, having other people's perspectives. But if we can get back to God's perspective, that like he loves that individual, he has made them with value and purpose. And if we can see things that way, that's a fresh energy, fresh vision every day. And I think that's the gospel message that I keep coming back to.
It's amazing, Dan. And if people want to buy the products you make or they want to link up with you, how do they connect with you, Dan? How does that happen?
The best thing you can do is come to our cafe in Gateshead and see some of our trainees, get them to make you a latte. Failing that, if you're stuck out of the Northeast and you unfortunately live in some other part of the country, then you can find our website, handcrafted.org.uk. There's a shop on there where you can support us by buying things. You can see like the full range of stuff we're doing, ways that you can get involved. We'd really, love to hear from people and love to see people just like taking this vision much wider, like take these ideas, let's like run with it, let's believe in people more, give people the opportunity more, like really believe in that transformation and that love that God has for people.
And Dan, you've shown amazing resilience. You've remained true to your calling. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and hearing your story and knowing the reality of what you've done up in Durham, Gateshead, the surrounding areas. And I find it amazing that you caught that while you were in Durham at university, and that was where God dropped it into your heart, and you've remained true to it and will probably remain true to it for the rest of your life. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you so much for joining us on this podcast.
Thank you so much, Roy. You're far too kind, but yeah, thank you very much.
God bless you.
And you.
If you've enjoyed listening to this, we pray that you'll leave a comment. It's a great story of what Dan's doing. I trust you've been inspired. And if you want to find out more, do visit his website and let's see these communities transformed by the love of God. So it's been great to listen to Dan and to do this in partnership with UCB and Gospel Entrepreneurs.